Good evening. Welcome to the Little Ship Club Tuesday night club talk. We are trying to live stream this, so please make sure you keep background noise to the minimum, and questions. Charlie will explain when repeat the question with either before or after the talk. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker tonight, who I met 5 years ago now, when I was walking Rumpole in Hyde Park, and I saw them doing model yacht racing on the Round Pond. Since then, a lot has happened, and last couple of months ago, we were talking as we were going down to to sailing at the Round Pond, and he offered very kindly to do a talk tonight. So here we are, and our speaker is Dr. Charles Clark, who is passionate about sailing, climbing, racing fishing boats in Chile, and racing model yachts in the Round Pond. Over to you, Charlie.
Well, thank you very much, Barry, and I'm grateful to several people here, yourself for the introduction, and in this three-part lecture to Graham and Andy, who joined me and made possible the Three Peaks Yacht Race in 2021, and my partner Marcella, who took me first to Latin America and has taken me many times since 2011, although we were thereabouts. So this is a three-part lecture. Could I have the lights down, please, because the slides are better? I should have asked you that before. Thank you very much. Unless you don't want to. The Three Peaks Yacht Race is a fantastic event. It's little publicised. Of course, it's not the Solent and it's not the South Coast, but it's some real sailing. And it was started in 1977. Did anyone know Bill Tillman, who was the skipper of Mischief, a wonderful old Bristol pilot cutter that he took to Greenland climbing and exploring. And Tillman was lost in the South Atlantic in 1977, and the race was sort of founded in his honour. And that rather lovely, charming man was, I am told, an absolute bastard in a boat, and nobody would ever sail with him again when they'd been with Bill. But a great figure, both in mountaineering and in sailing. Well, what about this race? It's 400 nautical miles and basically 3 mountain marathons. It's either hell, fun, or a bit of both, and I've done it on 4 occasions. My yacht is called Whiskey Galore of Little Toddy. She's an old 50-year-old Nicholson 35. And, well, how do you get a crew to come on your 4th trip? Well, you ask your friends, and they say no. You ask previous crew, and they've either got families or are working, or they say, no, thank you, Charlie. Well, we were in 2021, so what do? You go dating on the internet. And the first one came up. This is James Nicholson, a young doctor who's done a lot of running, he's done a lot of sailing, and he seemed perfect. And then there's the yacht. here's Whiskey going down the Flame Peninsula with a dolphin in tow, and there she is on a previous Three Peaks yacht race. And the crew, I hope, is me, James II from the Isle of Man, Andy who's here, and Graham. Well, what about the route? Well, I'll come back to this in a minute. Have I got a point? Yes, I have. Barmouth to Caernarfon, then up to Whitehaven and Loch Linnhe. And basically, you've got 25 miles of running in Snowdon, a lot more in Black Sail, cycling, and then up Scarfell Pike, and then finally up the Ben. It all starts, of course, in a tranquil way, with James II unloading 50 years of sun cream from the boat, and we sailed down to Barmouth in a couple of days, and there we are in Barmouth Sound. And what was it? There were 17 yachts, and the first thing I suggested we do was to scrub the bottom of the boat, because I thought really we ought to get the crew working. So here's James Nicholson going under to clean up Whiskey's bottom. Leg 1 is Barmouth to Caernarfon, and the hazards are Bardsey Sound and Caernarfon Bar to what's called Musselbank Buoy. And of course this is a yacht race. You're not allowed to touch your engine except for charging batteries, and in certain places you're not allowed to touch it at all. Well, it was fairly uneventful in good weather from Barmouth. We got a reasonable start as we left on Saturday afternoon. I think it was June the 10th, and there we are up relatively in the hunt for a very short time, in good weather going towards Bardsey Sound. And by Sunday, we were, early in the morning, we were off Caernarfon, when the wind dropped and the tide began to ebb, and you can see this is the course that James plotted. And as the wind fell lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, we rowed and rowed and rowed harder and harder, and just got to this buoy whose name is obscured, called Musselbank, where you can turn the engine on. And then you get to Caernarfon. We were luckier than some, and here's one yacht that ran aground and was out of the race. And here's Caernarfon. This was last Thursday, actually, when we sailed in from the Flame Peninsula with, you can't quite see the flags at half-mast. And this lovely old town, this wonderful castle, here's another picture of it in the sunset. But of course there is another side to Caernarfon, that in the 12th century this castle was built not by the Welsh but by the British, who overran the jewel city of North Wales, so beloved. And the Welsh were not allowed to live within its walls. They had to pay to come into the city to trade. And lo and behold, they hated the English. But enough of that. From Caernarfon, thank you. From Caernarfon, there's this rather dismal landing stage where we dropped off Andy and Craig. And here's the run up to the top of Snowdon. Now, I'm not going to talk about running, but they did a pretty good time. It's just a bit over 5 hours. They came 9th out of 17. But this is a pretty competitive and I think rather boring run, isn't it? There's a lot of road, hell of a lot of road. Next is to get, you can either go round or through the Menai Strait, through the Swillies, and because my boat lives just there in Bangor, we of course went through the Swillies, and then through the Menai Strait, and this is just illustrated here. And for those of you, how many people have been through the Swillies? One. It's fun. It's lovely. It starts with Nelson, with the great inscription of England expects, not Wales, England. And here's a rather tranquil view of
Yes.
the two bridges. But if you look at the charts, things are slightly different. There's the Gribbin rock here, there's Swilly Rock, the South Platters and the North Platters, and it's somewhat hazardous. And here it is at low water, and this is the Gribbin, and you've really got to follow the transits and the way through the Swillies. And we went through on a bit of flood tide with far too little water, and it was exceedingly exciting. This isn't a picture of the route, but a picture of our route, but I was scared stiff. And of course, you're not allowed to touch the engine. Well, there are no slides of the next bit because it was 154 tacks from Bangor up to Puffin Island here. And the two runners were asleep, or largely asleep and resting, and the two Jameses were on the winches. Onwards. Here are the two relevant routes. There's a route through the Menai Strait, and lovely weather going up to Whitehaven initially, but then there was a bit of a problem because this high pressure came in and there was no wind. And here's our course plotted by James Nicholson, who produced a lot of these slides, but not all of them. And eventually we got into Whitehaven with a bit of rowing late at night. Sorry. The boy's sleeping. At last got the spinnaker up with the wind behind for a bit, but it was largely beating. And there we are, tucked up in the marina in Whitehaven. Glad to find that Tesco is open, I think, 24 hours, so you can get things. Scafell is next, part cycling, a long cycle ride, and they really do look as if they're enjoying themselves, don't they? I cannot understand it, but maybe they just put the smiles on. But they're smiling now. Onwards, through the Mull of Kintyre, we started on Saturday, we're now at Tuesday, and we're going round, sorry, I'm having a mental block of what that's called. Mull of Galloway, isn't it? And then the Mull of Kintyre, and up into Loch Linnhe. And just a few photos which tell the story of really everybody working on this boat, which was great, that nobody was a passenger. And luckily, nobody was seasick. And there's the Mull. But as you will see from the course, we were with fair tide, but largely beating the whole way throughout this week. It was really rather exhausting. Occasionally got spinny up or Jenica up. Here's our route plotted through Scarborough, and then up to Loch Linnhe and the Corran Narrows, which is the next real problem area, apart from the running, that is. And Loch Linnhe was interesting. Went through the Gulf of Corryvreckan, which was painless, but in Loch Linnhe we were against the tide and with falling wind. And although I'd been through 3 times before, I wasn't really ready for it. And it all looked so terribly tranquil. And the weather was nice. And the ferry was going across. And we were making a little bit of progress. But soon we were paddling like mad. And this, for those of you who haven't been there, gives you an idea of the tide. This is from just from the stern of the ferry. But it runs at about 5 knots. And there began a problem. And there are a few photographs, because as the wind fell and the tide increased, James Nicholson was in his underpants with anchor in hand, about to jump overboard and run the anchor into the land. And just then there was a great ruffle to the north of sea. and waves, and within seconds it seemed, and it really was within about 2 minutes, we were in about force 6. We were under full sail, lying over on our side, taking in water, and we still, even though we were beating, we couldn't make any progress. And people waved from the shore, and we waved back, and it was clear that we were going to have to do something fairly dramatic. So we turned sharp round, nearly ran aground, as you can see, and then back down and round to this little cove, which I spotted here, and none too soon. Because the next thing that happened was there was a crackle on the VHF. This is the Oban lifeboat calling Whiskey Galore, Whiskey Galore, Whiskey Galore, the usual thing. And there was the Oban lifeboat coming out to rescue us, because the people on the shore who'd been waving, they weren't waving, they were shouting. But we said we were perfectly all right at our anchor. And the following day, indeed we were. It was blissful, charming, calm, but a bit of wind. And we went up through the Coran Narrows without any difficulty at all, and then beating again up to Korpak. And we were there early Friday morning, just in time, and the boys went off once again, they're smiling, to run up the bend and back again. And here we are, this little family of 5 who never met before, and it was sad to part, because we'd all got on well, and there's a little picture of the race, and we did, in fact, win a little cup called the Last Inn, because we just, which is the name of a pub in Barmouth, and we were the last inn on time at about 9th. Well, what about it? The thoughts of the skipper, I don't want to play psychology with all this, but you do have to think about the runners, because they are doing something that's usually different for them. We're doing the thing we do every day, and they get seasick, they take pills, and they get drowsy, and you've got to look after them. And in return, if they can contribute any basic sailing skills, it's very, very much appreciated. And we had great support during the race. And this is every Three Peaks race, I end up exhausted, vowing I will never do it again. And then a couple of years later, of course I do. I'm pressing, but nothing's happening. There we go. The runner's thoughts, well, he's smiling before. Later you can say a little bit. That's the end of part 1. Am I doing all right in time, Barry? I think so. Well, part 2, we're going to go somewhere really rather different. We're going to the island of Chiloé and this southern archipelago in Chile, where I was taken about 6 years ago by Marcelo when we went on holiday. And just to orientate you a little bit, it's down here. And what about it? Well, this is the island where Darwin visited with Fitzroy on the Beagle, and this wonderful book describes it all in his diary. And since 2015, we've taken part in a regatta of traditional Chilote yachts organised by a man who's now our friend, Don Pedro Martinez, who puts this together with extraordinary energy. And 10 old yachts spend the time cruising between the island, and it's free. Wonderful and great fun. I'm praying for another slide to come up. Here we go. Rather obviously, this is how you get there. You can sail, but we don't. And looking at it on the chart on your iPhone, we're down here in these islands. Cape Horn is down here, the Beagle Channel in there. And Chiloé is this land that Darwin visited when he was 21. The extraordinary detail of his observations. And here he is. And oddly in his diary, he hardly mentions Fitzroy. one wonders if he really liked him. There's the Beagle, and I had some trouble putting together this side. I didn't really know why, but these next pictures are about show the Cordillera, the churches built by the Jesuits in the late 19th century in Chiloé, of boat building, modern style, but still in wood. There are speeches and presentations, and it's cultural. There's dancing and music and spit roasts, and of course, yacht models, some of them made by this wonderful man who lives on a little island just off the coast of a town called Kemchi, called Roberto Trevino. This is Chiloé, and it's about 150 miles long, and the regattas are largely around this side. This is Darwin's map, and he could use it, we can. So there are, of course, charts, but we were round these different islands, just cruising gently for a week. And here's Don Pedro, the mastermind behind this organisation. And these pictures really tell their own story. Just in the background, one evening near the capital in Castro, we spied this open yacht sitting on the mud, the Basilisco, and within a few days, Don Pedro had lent it to me. And there's his other boat, the Harvey, and this is just the beginning of the regatta, one of the other boats coming in, and these pictures just show this wonderful, wonderful area. And from time to time, one comes across a model yacht. This one's hanging in a church. The wonderful detail of these old yachts, most of them built in the 1950s. Basilisco goose-winged. And here's the church of San Juan, which is one of our bases, and a lot of presentations and a degree of formality to keep the traditions going of these old yachts, which sometimes it gets a little tedious, but it's very, very important. And Don Pedro does a job that nobody else would do. Here's one of the presentations to Don Jose, who is the maker of the Basilisco, which I said. Music in the background, spit roasts, cueca, and the conjurer. Education, drama, and this is the travelling library, the Felipe Navigante that comes with us, taking books largely for children. And we bumped into the local NHS ambulance. Friends from previous years, me and Omar, my crew, or one of my crew, because Marcelo crews as well, in the Basilisco, Jorge, and here's some pictures of boat building going on. It isn't always calm. And this is a wonderful wreck picture, I think, the remains of the ancient. And the churches are very, very special, and each of them has, well, most of them have a nautical flavour like this. Here's Achao, the capital of Kinshasa, one of the main islands, and the altar there, without a yacht, strangely. And this is Tenaum from Getty Images, because I haven't got a good picture. And there's a lot of wildlife, the sea lambs roaring on the mussel boats, on the mussel buoys. And once again, these model yachts keep turning up and turning up. And because I love model yachts, I started to find out who built them and came across this man, Roberto Trevino, whom we found on a remote island, and he put together, this is a model of the Basilisco, which I sailed, and here's Don Pedro's boat, the Harvey. And here's Roberto Trevino with the model yacht that he made for me, which is here, and I'll bring it out in a minute. And that's really the end of part 2. And the last bit is about why Barry really asked me here, and why Barry produced his 3 yachts, and I produced some bits and pieces from our club. Now, like the Little Ship Club, we are a place with traditions and innumerable cups, far too many, but also this beautiful model of a 12-meter called Iris that was that sank off Norway in 1972, and it was built by Sir Thomas Glenn Coates, who was also one of our members. It was built in 1926, and as I said, lost in the 1970s, but really lovely. And this is the boat.
You want a hand, Charlie?
No. That Roberto Trevino made for me.
Some people get a bottle of wine.
And we took it to pieces and ferried it back in bits, and then it was very kindly put a radio in it with from my friend Dave Andrews, who's a member of the club, who's sadly not here. But let's just make this connection to part 3, the London Model Yacht Club, also known as the Model Yacht Sailing Association, but now we like the term London, so that's what it is. And we've got a website, as you might imagine, and here is an example of the sort of thing we do. We do 2 things. One is competitive racing every Sunday and some Saturdays. And these are 10 raters, which are the biggest yachts, which the big black 10-rater here, Monkey Business at Barry's, is over there. And then Barry's going to demonstrate the other little bits and pieces. Do you want to just say what these are?
The largest one is a 10-rater, and you can probably recognize the theme here. One's called Monkey Business. The 1 meter, also known as an IOM, is called Animal Crackers. Probably recognize that as Marx Brothers films. And the smallest one, which is 95 centimeters rather than 1 meter, is the one that's catching on most at the moment, as it's easy to build, easy to put together. One design, sail plan, and hull are standard, whereas the 1 meter is the sail plan is standard, and the hull is development. But it's the 10-rater is a total development class, but it's a very simple rule, and you can have a very long boat with a small sail, or a very short boat with a big sail. You choose basically what you want, and there's a sort of standardized now. So these are in competitive racing, and they're very quick boats, all carbon fiber, very long fin and ballast hull. By contrast, the lighter and the smaller DF95, sometimes you see the smaller sister of this at the Southampton Boat Show, and you can play around with wind fans and things and have a go. This is catching on all over. Lots of clubs now are using this the DF95 for competitive racing, and I can just show you now how you actually control the sails and the rudder just by two levers. One is I switch on here,
I hold the
and you switch on the receiver, which is in there, and it's got it's got a burgee on the top to tell you where the wind's coming from. So you can see that how it pulls the sails in close hauled, and if you heel it a bit more, you can see how it goes out when the wind's behind. And the rudder is the other control, which is just so there's two controls, very simple, and people get to the feel of it very quickly. Celia's the latest member of the London Model Yacht Club. She's been trying a 10-rater, and within 2 sessions she was very competent and quite up with the other boats. So that's how it works. Very simple. Transmitter here, receiver there, and it carries for 100, 200 yards or so, at least the distance you want for the round pond anyway. Every Sunday morning, 10 till 12, rock up and you might find, as I did, a transmitter thrust into your hand and say, have a go.
How are they coded separately so that you control your own boat and not
There used to be a problem, but now with technology, it's not a problem. They're all very, very high frequency and very, very many signals sent, so that the signals do not get confused now. Which is
and so I've got, with my 2 transmitters there are about 10 boats on those, just flick over to another boat. And the technology consists of it is very simple in one way. There's the receiver, there's the battery, and here's the tranny. And so you have a winch and a servo for the rudder. But there are 2 things about modern yacht racing. One is that it is very competitive, and all the rules of port and starboard and windward and leeward and overtaking boat to keep clear and all that sort of thing come into play, often at high-pitched screams. And we do have a code of practice. You're not allowed to swear. They upset people. And the other thing is that the sail setting of these boats has taught me an enormous amount about sail setting, because a little tweak on the downhaul on the leach of the jib will completely alter the sail. A tweak on the kicking strap, ditto, a tweak on the backstay. And so quite apart from your navigational skills and racing skills and tactics, the sail setting is vastly important. And these are highly competitive yachts. This is a thing called a Diamond, which is really top of the range, particularly when it has Barry behind it. It makes it go extremely fast. So that's the London Model Yacht Club, and we are very keen to show people how these boats work. You're most welcome. We can almost always lend you a boat, and are often delighted to sell you one and lure you in there, as I think Barry was lured in. And it's people. There should be 2 people here. They're flying from Vancouver today, so they're late. John Andrews and Linda Andrews, and John sidled up. He's very tall, and he sidled up to me racing, and I said, "Oh, this looks very interesting." And I said, "Yes, do you sail a bit?" And he said, yes, I sail a bit. And I said, "Oh, so do I. I've got a Nicholson 35, and I've done the Three Peaks Yacht Race. Where have you been?" And he said, "Oh, well, this summer we did the Northwest Passage." So the wonderful British understatement, I'll never forget it. But come and enjoy. So I think I've finished. I've kept to reasonable time, perhaps 1 or 2 minutes over, but I'm very happy to A, deal with any questions, and B, would anyone like to say anything? Marcella, would you like to say anything? And Greg?
It was a very enjoyable week.
Good. Thank you very much, that's fine.
However,
Well, thank you very much indeed,
No, it's
Charlie.
terrific.
That
It
was
was,
really
and it
very...
was truly terrific to have you both. That you know, this was a group of 5 people who never met each other before, with a boring old fart like me, and you know, most of them are old enough to be my children.
Well, it's very nice that 2 of your runners should be here tonight. It was a fantastic race, and it sounds like a real challenge. And
when was that one?
2021. June the 10th,
Oh, right.
21. We didn't do this year.
And it was amazing to see them coming back. I saw them coming back from Snowdon, and they were as if you'd gone for a walk to Oxford Street. You know, they were smiling and they didn't look tired. Really amazing.
I believe that the Tillman Trophy is one of the many trophies that are awarded for the Three Peaks races for when all 5 of the crew actually run up. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. I'd forgotten to mention the Tillman Trophy. But
that must be it's really grueling, and I suppose it's why a lot of the services participate in this regatta, in this race, because it's quite. It is exceedingly challenging, or must be. I can't possibly imagine, you know, how you could possibly climb through or run up 3 mountains after an exhausting sail, and do some cycling as well. So it's well done. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
It's about 20 hours of running, the whole thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well done to the runners.
I'll mention the elephant in the room. Are we going to do it again?
Yes.
I'm up for it.
Gotta go. Done.
Right, that's fixed. Yes. Questions from the floor for Charlie.
Charlie,
Steve.
that was really great, you know, for the sort of 3 bits of it as well, which I hadn't quite been expecting up on the website. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th or 6th one across there is for sale, it says. Is it an impertinent or insensitive question? I mean, how much do these things cost? Will it kill the pension pot like normally?
Well, DF95s are 295 or
Just under £300. That you put it together yourself in about half an hour.
And the kit costs another. I mean, a good transmitter costs about 150 rupees. So that sort of thing. And
you can get cheaper transmitters, about 30, 40,
So just a week or 2
pounds.
of the pension
Yeah.
pot, really. That's quite
Yeah.
encouraging. Thank you.
But the great thing about the London Model Yacht Club is they have some club boats, and people who want to come along and try it, and don't want to necessarily make a big commitment, a capital commitment to a boat, can borrow the boats and take responsibility for any damage. Obviously, these things go incredibly quickly and can make holes in other hulls with greatest of ease. But you'll see they have a big bumper on the bow so that it does protect the other boats. And the DF95 has a bumper as well, and it's vertical so that when they hit each other, if you do port and starboard and you're not looking or something, they're tough boats, the DF95s, and they will survive, and so that's why they're also very good for team racing, because there are one of the things you learn very quickly is the rules, and I mean, after sailing for many years big boats, you don't really get to know the rules that well. You learn them very quickly with model yacht racing, and if you don't, you're reminded of the rules by your other competitors. And so the classes all have their devotees, but these are the three classes which represent the classes sailed at the Round Pond, together with the vintage boats, which I think the club is blessed with one of the largest collections in the world of vintage 10-raters. And the members of the London Model Yacht Club represented here. We have Derek the Commodore, Colin the Vice Commodore, and the past Commodore Charlie, and Celia, the latest member, all have vintage yachts too, as well as a number of. Colin seems to collect an awful lot of model yachts, but vintage yachts as well are sailed at Derek, next weekend we've got a vintage meeting on Saturday or Sunday? Saturday. And some of these absolutely really significant boats that were built and designed in the end of the century before last. I mean, 1898 was Buttercup, and I think the other one was soon after that, built by a very significant man in model yacht racing, and significant designers as well, who built and designed bigger boats as well. But